Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast presented by ScentLock. You guys know my absolute obsession with ScentLock and their carbon technology for maximum odor absorption. Go check out ScentLock, guys, for all of their new products, especially their new Divergent series, which is absolutely the warmest series that I've ever put on in my entire life. And I'm excited to get into December with it. So go check out ScentLock, all of their new products. They have an incredible lineup that will get you from early season to late season. I've got a special guest. I've got Mr. Baker Black from the Black Rifle Coffee Company. How are you, Baker?
I'm great. And just to clarify, that makes it sound like I am Mr. Black Rifle Coffee. So my name is Baker Black Leavitt, and my Instagram handle is Black Baker. Everybody calls me Black Baker. But yes, I work for Black Rifle. I'm not, just said Baker Black Rifle. It just sounded strange. But
You're
just
not
to
Mr.
clarify,
Black.
Yeah, no, I'm not Mr. Black. Mr. Black was my grandfather.
You know, I actually thought of that first time I met you. You said my name is Baker Black, and I'm like, man, you had to work for a coffee company, like just from birth, like had to.
I didn't start drinking black. I didn't start drinking my coffee black until I started working for Evan at Black Rifle. I've always been like a big cream and sugar guy. And it's interesting, I think personally, black coffee is an acquired taste, but once you kind of start getting into it and reading a little bit about it and learning a little bit more about coffee, the only way to drink it is black. Because, like, to drink coffee with cream or sugar in it is sacrilege. It is a sin. I won't judge you because that's not my position to judge. That's the Holy Father's position. That's what it says in the Bible. But I will tell you this: you should. And then also, you know, one other thing, since we're talking about coffee, one other thing that's really interesting about coffee is understanding the different types of roasts. You know, you got your light roast, your medium roast, your dark roast, and your extra dark. And the lighter the roast, the heavier the caffeine content. Most people don't realize that. Your average person does not know that lighter roasts have the most caffeine. Extra dark has the most flavor, but the lighter the roast, the heavier the caffeine content. You didn't know that, did you?
I did know that. I'm a coffee connoisseur.
You did? Okay, that's right. Yeah, actually, I did know that about you. So there we go. Yeah, so you do know that. But most people, you'd be surprised. They think light roast, oh, that's pansy. They usually equate light to like a light beer. So like Mick Ultra, you know, or Miller Lite, that's my Miller Lite and Coors Light are my favorite beers. But they think it's like, they automatically equate it to like less calories or something. Yeah, I drink coffee black. I drink a French press. That's my preferred manner of consumption. But I also think, and for any backcountry hunters listening, our instant coffee, in my opinion, is the best instant coffee in the world. And when I hunt, I drink. We were at the farm this past weekend, and it was a house and a kitchen and all that stuff, and I drink instant coffee because it's quick and I like it.
You know, I had your instant coffee, and this is not a coffee podcast, so don't just tune out if you don't like coffee. But I had your instant coffee not too long ago for the first time. I was in Chatfield at our Pope and Young offices, and there was some instant coffee, and I'm like, I'll give her a shot, and it's pretty good. Now,
it is.
I'll tell you where I draw the line on cream and sugar. You know, when I was growing up, my mom and my grandmothers liked cream and sugar in their coffee. My dad and my grandfathers liked black coffee. So as a kid, I always called it boy coffee and girl coffee. And then growing up, I liked girl coffee because I was a little kid. I've liked coffee my whole life, but I liked it girl coffee. Well, then in high school, I traveled to a fantastic country by the name of Brazil.
All right.
Their coffee
we get coffee from there.
Oh my gosh, dude. I remember I was probably 16 years old, and they give me this little shot glass of the thickest, richest, darkest coffee you've ever seen in your entire life. And I've never put cream and sugar in coffee since.
Really? That's actually awesome. I like to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, it changed me. It changed me. And then I really didn't get into other brewing methods. I'd probably say it was my brother that got me into different brewing methods, because I used to just put it in a pot and go. And then, it was a few years back I finally got a pour over and then a French press, and now I'm all about the AeroPress. That's pretty much how I make my coffee at home, is an AeroPress. But yeah, I've just I've learned to enjoy it.
I like it. So now that we've gotten the coffee talk out of the way, let's talk about hunting.
Yeah, no more coffee talk. However, I am enjoying coffee.
How's your season going?
It sucks. It sucks so bad.
That's why I let you go first, because I know yours will be quick, and then mine will probably take a little bit longer.
I'm excited to look at the vast contrasts of seasons, because somebody put a post out this week. I think it was I don't remember. It was a Decoy company. I don't remember who it was. And they said playing cat and mouse this week, and I responded back with yeah, but I don't know if I'm the cat or the mouse, because they've been ahead of me the entire year. This is the second year I've had on this property. Let me just preference this first, actually, before we dive in. It is right now, it is November the 17th. So we are in the heat of it. We're in the heat of it. And I actually really enjoy the tail end of the rut, especially here in Kansas. During the peak of the rut, it's hard to nail down a deer because they're everywhere. But in the later part of the rut, you can really catch them chasing those last couple does. And it becomes a lot better hunting in my opinion. Now I've had this property for 2 years. My second year, last year I had a set, and it was a phenomenal set that I had hung, and I ended up shooting a pretty nice buck out of that set. But I watched deer constantly go about 200 yards away to another place. And so this year, I tagged out pretty early last year, and so I didn't worry about moving it last year. This year, I moved the stand to where those bucks were going to last year.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Let's take a waypoint real quick. I want to make a point here. So what you did was you hunted memories, not conditions. And that is a problem that's a mistake that a lot of hunters and anglers make. Oh man, I saw him here last year. Or, man, I was tearing him up, catching him here last year. I caught my biggest bass here 3 years ago. And a lot of people, I call it hunting memories, not the conditions that you're sitting in.
Now you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. However, it stayed true. All of the deer were coming to that area. However, the first sit of the year, I got busted. Deer got downwind. They blew and bolted. I'm like, dang, whatever. Turns out this place that I was trying to hunt, I didn't know, because from where I was sitting last year, I didn't know that deer came from another direction as well. And so it was like 2 weeks of constantly being busted by different winds. And I'm like, there's no way to hunt this stand. Like, there's just no way. And so I pulled out of there. And actually last night, I told my wife, I'm like, I'm just going to go do an observation sit, because I can't figure out this property. I can't figure out where they're coming from and where they're going. Well, turns out I saw a lot of deer coming from an area. And so I walk over there, and it explained a lot to me. I call one of my buddies who knows the property well, and I'm like, dude, there's a stinking feeder. One of the other farmers runs a feeder over there. So no wonder they're coming from an area you never would have guessed them to come.
That makes perfect sense.
And so anyways, last night, I'm excited because I really believe that tomorrow and Thursday my season's going to turn around, because I pulled out of that spot, did an observation set, and I hung a new set. So I hung a set, and then I went and did an observation set. And I had 2 shooters come in front of that new set that I hung last night. So now I can sneak back in there this week and really be on the attack now. And I think I've nailed it down, but just a rough season, man. And then I head to Oklahoma. And you look at the predictions, the rut predictions on HuntCast, and I looked at temperature and pressure and wind direction, and the outfitter that I was hunting with down there, Liberty Ranch, he was like, dude, this is the best set. Like, this is a money set. He was showing me day after day of daylight shooters, and I'm like, good Lord, this is going to be phenomenal. And I caught him on, like, it had to have been the first day of the lockdown, because I was hunting on a Friday, I believe. Yeah, Friday. And he had daylight pictures of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of shooters showing up. Friday, I did an all-day sit. Weather was perfect. Pressure was perfect. Wind direction for the stand was perfect. And I set for 12 hours and didn't see one stinking deer.
Dude,
And I'm
so
like,
you know what, man? It is absolutely fascinating to me how it goes from, because like it's pre-rutty, and then it's lockdown, and then it's peak rut, and not all like there is the most distinct of those three, and then we'll say secondary rut, which is number 4. Of those 4 times that whitetail hunters spend a lot of time in the woods, the one that doesn't deviate from its name is lockdown, in my opinion. Like, it all of a sudden you're like, I think it's pre-rut. Yeah, it's pre-rut, or it's peak rut, but when it's lockdown, you're like, oh, it is 100% lockdown. Like, it just, everything changes overnight.
all the time, yeah. There's no like,
and there's no drift. There's no like, oh, I think we're in lockdown. No, you're in lockdown.
Yeah, there was no, like, that's what sucked is like I planned this whole, it's only a couple hour drive for me. And so I left late on a Thursday night, got the kids in bed, left late, got there at like midnight, and woke up at like 4. And I planned this whole, I'm like, this is going to be a money day, man. He had been sending me pictures. I'm like, this is it. And set for 12 hours. I'm like, I just wasted a trip to Oklahoma. Like, I just burned a trip,
Right.
Because there was no indication of it coming. And that's what's so hard about the lockdown. But I also think it's important to immediately take note of when that lockdown takes place, so you can begin to predict and understand when the lockdown will end.
Right. So I like the Huntwise app. We use it down at our farm in Americus, and it's great. However, for us, it's off by about 4 days. So it said the lockdown should have ended and we should be entering peak rut, and like right when our lockdown kicked off. So it's about 4 or 5 days kind of delayed for us. The peak rut, it was right on, but like, I think so. And you got to keep in mind, man, like, so where I hunt whitetails is in Americus, Georgia. And it's our weather, like we'll have a low. Let me give you some exact numbers. Like, this is how drastic our temperature changes are. So here we go. Okay, so the low today was 36 this morning, and the high today is 75. Okay. Wednesday we got a low of 40, a high of 80. Thursday 54, 81. Friday is 45, 66. Saturday's 41, 66. Sunday's 46, 72. And then like next Tuesday it's 37 and 57. So like our temperatures are just all over the place, man. Like, we don't have like a consistent cold front or cold snap come through. So for us, it's, it's just like, I think our rut period and, pre-rut, post-rut, second rut, lockdown, all that stuff, it's a little bit wonky, man. Like, it's you can nail it some days, and some days you're like, hey man, what just happened? Like, there's 35 deer in this field last night. There's not a deer here today. Like, what's going on? So yeah, man, it's interesting. But I am a fan of the Huntwise app. Like, I do think it's a really good, like, kind of basis to base a bunch of stuff off of. But
and here's what I want to tell everybody about the Huntwise app. I made a post the other day, and basically it was the camera was on the phone and it showed a 5 deer day, and then the camera panned out and there was a buck standing 12 yards from me. Looking back, I wish I would have shot that buck.
I remember the deer you're talking about. Yeah.
And the camera panned out, and somebody's like, well, it's not always right. Let me preference this. Huntwise, there's a lot of things that Huntwise cannot determine. Huntwise cannot determine that cattle are going to come into your set that morning and ruin your hunt. Huntwise cannot determine that the neighbor's dog just ran off a buck out of its bed that was going to come to you. Now it's not. Like, it can't determine a lot of outside factors. And just because it shows great day doesn't mean it's going to be a great, and just because it shows bad day doesn't going to mean it's be a bad day. But it's a tool that helps you understand all of the data points that we try to as hunters collect in our mind, and it puts it on one platform to easily look at. That's all it is.
It gives you the scientific data. It cannot control wild animals. I haven't found anything that can control wild animals yet.
Exactly. So I'm anxious. Before I ask you this, though, I do need to give a quick thank you to our friends over at Three Rivers Archery. Your one-stop shop for everything traditional. Whether you need some new arrows for this fall, whether you need a new Selway quiver or broadheads or whatever it is, a clicker, they're your one-stop shop for all things traditional. They are the largest in-stock traditional retailer there is. So head over to threeriversarchery.com to get all of your traditional equipment, because they are a absolute powerhouse when it comes to traditional, not only equipment, but knowledge. So they are knowledgeable on all the products that they sell. So go check out our friends over at Three Rivers Archery. Baker, the question I want to ask, and what I really want to get down to, is when you're having a sucky season, when you're behind all the time, when you can't figure out how to hunt deer in any given year or in any given place, what do you start to do? What steps do you start to take to try to turn around that season?
So, one, the first thing you have to do is remove emotion. And the pity party and the feeling sorry for yourself, like that is the first thing that you have to get rid of. Then the second thing you got to get rid of is like anxiety and stress and pressure. Because anxiety, I have never in my life had anyone in any realm that I exist in explain to me how stress or anxiety or feeling sorry for yourself or being emotional has helped anyone solve any problems in the history of the world. So those are just negative things that you add into the equation that just makes your likelihood of success even lower. And the one thing that I decided, this has been my best fall of my lifetime. I'm 45 years old. I've been hunting since I was 15. So I've got 3 decades doing this. I'm not saying that like I'm a great hunter, but like I've hunted on 4 continents in 20 something states. And I have a really good time hunting. I am by no means a great hunter, like not even close. There's a lot of things I'm really good at, and I'll tell you about them. But like I'm really good at having fun and enjoying the process. But this year, I decided that I was going to base my entire fall, my success, on making good decisions. I didn't care if I kill a deer. I don't care if I kill an elk. I don't care if I shoot something with my bow, muzzleloader, rifle, whatever. The only thing I cared about was when this season was over and I hung up my camo and hung up my bow and my rifle, I wanted to look back and just say I made the right decisions at all the right times. And so far, I've done that. So I started in Nebraska in early September, spot and stalk velvet muley bucks. And I've always wondered like why anyone would chase velvet muley bucks with a bow when they could go chase elk. And I figured it out this fall because that's one of the coolest hunts I've ever done in my life, and it was unbelievable. All right, so that was in Curtis, Nebraska. And then I was with Sand River Outfitters. I believe that's the name of the outfitter. Let me confirm that real quick. I know there's another similar name that doesn't have a lot of great stuff. Sand River Outfitters. That's who I hunted with in Curtis, Nebraska. It was unbelievable, like truly awesome, man. And then 2 weeks later, I was in southern Colorado elk hunting, so in Curtis, Nebraska, I shot a really nice 4x4 full velvet. And then 2 weeks later, I was in southern Idaho, right outside of Trinidad, Colorado, and I shot a 381-inch bull elk. All right, and then the next day, I shot a 400-pound color phase black bear. All right, and then you came home, shot a couple does with the bow, and then November the 5th, so 11 days ago, I shot a whopper of a whitetail, like just super wide, which is what I absolutely love is wide racks. Like I like that Texas look, just a hammer. And the on the mule deer and on that elk, there were situations where I had to make decisions that were the right decisions that I didn't want to do. Like I wanted just to send it, and I was like, you know what? No, this isn't right. I'm not going to do it. Like I had interactions with that elk every morning and afternoon and I finally shot him on the third morning. The bear, I had multiple interactions with him Finally got him on the fourth afternoon. And the whitetail buck, he came out. It wasn't dark. It was legal shooting light, I'll say, but it wasn't legal shooting light, if that makes any sense. Like, it wasn't, I'll call it legal shooting light. It wasn't ethical shooting light. How's that sound? That makes sense. And I was sitting there staring at him with my binos, and I could see his beams. He was like kind of under a tree. It was kind of dark where he was standing. And I was like, God, he's super wide. He's got good mass. And I was looking. And I was like, wait a minute, I think, yeah, he's a shooter. Wait a minute, what am I doing? That's definitely a shooter. So by the time I got ready, like, a doe had entered the back of the food plot, and he had moved off to the back of the food plot. And so didn't work out, and then he just kind of walked out of the field. And then that evening, I had another opportunity at him on a different field, in a bean field, and it worked out and dropped him, and it was wonderful. And then also, like, shot a few pigs. That's always good. And then a few does. Melissa, my girlfriend, shot a couple does. That's always awesome and exciting. My nephew Gavin, who's 12, actually he's 13 now. He's a teenager. Congratulations, Gavin, if you're listening, which I know you're not. But he shot a few does. And then my brother, trying to get my brother on a big buck. You know, he's new to hunting, and he's had a couple interactions with some deer. And like, I'll tell you this, I've passed on a couple hammers. I mean, dude, I'm talking hammers that were just too young, like 3.5. You know, like, I had one, I've seen him 3 times. I saw him with my nephew. He's 3.5 years old. And I was like, if he comes within range, like, in my head, I'm like, I might let Gavin shoot this buck. Cause he, you know, and then I saw him, there's a phenomenal photo on my Instagram. My Instagram account is Black Baker. There's a phenomenal photo of that buck, that sunrise photo. You can see him in the middle of the food plot going away. Shows how big he is. And then Melissa and I had him, Friday afternoon. We were sitting there, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I would love to see, just for you to see, like, a really big, mature buck, just a big buck, walk right down this road beside us. Just to see one up close and personal. And, dude, sure as I'm sitting here, man, like, that buck, I was like, oh, my God, it's him. And, dude, he walked right beside where we were sitting. Like, he was within, I think at one point I had him at 25 yards. I mean, he was and she's just like, oh, my God, oh, my God. So, yeah, to answer your question with that long-winded answer, if you're having a slump, just start focusing on making good decisions. Even if they're hard decisions to make and they're not the fun decisions, just, you got to make the right decisions. Like, if the wind's wrong, the wind's wrong. Like, that's one thing I think that a lot of people in the hunting world, like, hope does not work. It's like, man, I sure hope the wind changes. Don't ever make a decision based on hoping something's going to happen. Look at the data you have, look at the wind, look at, you know, and start studying scent and barometric pressure and how scent rises in the morning, and in the afternoon scent cascades down. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there to study, and, like, just spend some time learning about it. But ultimately, the best way to get out of a rut is just to make good decisions. That's how you avoid getting in ruts too.
And that was, I had somebody, I posted a picture last night on that observation sit, and somebody commented, why would you do this in the middle of the rut? Well, that question is easy. I could either choose to give up one day of attacking and one day of, you know, a chance to shoot the deer, or I could continue screwing up the deer. And I chose to pull out and give them a break. You know, my number one spot, that's the one thing I want to say as a tip is if you found yourself in a rut where you've you know, shot at a couple deer and missed, or you've blown out a couple deer because of bad stand locations or whatever, don't be afraid. I know it might be your quote unquote best spot, and that's where your shooters are or whatever, but don't be afraid to pull out and take a break and just say, you know what, I got to let this place rest for a day or 2 days or a week, whatever it might be. And just let those deer cool off, because I understand that's a hard decision to make. I understand that you're like, well, I want to be hunting. It's the middle of the rut. It's deer season. I want to be out there. Just go sit somewhere else. Sit at a quote unquote secondary stand or whatever it might be. But give that place, just let it settle for a little while. And that's a hard decision to make, but I promise you, it'll make the tail end of your season better, and it'll take off some of that frustration. Because I was frustrated. I was in that frustrated. Holy crap! What do I do, man? I've never, this shouldn't be this hard. So two things that you have to do in those times: give your place time to just settle back down, but then B, quit overthinking it. Like just go back to the basics and look at it with almost kid eyes of where would I hunt this place? Where is a good place to set up for a good wind, where deer will come in a good spot. If you're using a decoy, I know that's something that you told me you started experimenting with. But if you're going to use a decoy, figure out, can the deer, if they come downwind of the decoy, will they get downwind of me? I mean, if I'm going to use a decoy, I hunt a stand like that one I was hunting in Oklahoma. I call it the ledge. It's on a rock ledge, and deer cannot get downwind of me. It's impossible. So I can put a decoy out there knowing that they'll come downwind of the decoy, but they won't come downwind of me. So just look at those types of things and get back to the basics and quit trying to overcomplicate it and make it fancy. And I promise you, it'll take off some of the frustration, but it'll also make the latter part of your season more enjoyable.
That's interesting. So I think a lot of people, they think the basics are boring or maybe just not as exciting as other stuff. Like powerlifting is a good example. You'll have someone come into a gym and they'll start doing basic barbell work. Well, they see people doing, conjugate method with chains and bands and stuff. And they want to graduate to that. And it's like, bro, you are like years and years away from needing to work out with chains and bands and stuff. And I think a lot of people, what they do is they come in and it's the good idea theory. They're bored with the basics, so they want to try and do something exotic or fancy or introduce some strange product, to try and cut corners. And it's like, what happens is the basics are the basics for a reason. And when you start messing around and cutting corners or trying to reinvent the wheel with creativity, I think a lot of people run into a lot of problems that way. Stick to the basics. Doesn't matter what you're wearing. The wind is everything. Scent is everything. Scent is everything. And there's a lot of people, and this can be challenging. There's a lot of really good information out there about hunting, the rut. There's a lot of really good information about how to use deer decoys. John Dudley was pushing deer decoys super hard last year. When Jamie, who I hunt with, was like, yeah, give it a shot. And I was like, this is the dumbest thing I have ever done in my life. This is just stupid. But I was like, you know what? Begrudgingly, I'm going to go do it. I said earlier, I have a lot of fun hunting. So when I go hunting, I want to see deer. I'm not one of those guys that targets a specific buck and spends my entire season obsessing about him. We run a bunch of cameras. I know, generally speaking, what bucks are showing themselves. I know that there's deer that are, much older and much bigger, deeper in the woods, and I could spend, a season and maybe get a shot at one. But I hunt food plots. I hunt feeders. I hunt in the woods. But I don't focus on one deer. I'm not there yet. I just like to have a good time. So for me to use a decoy in a transition stage, which is an area where you're not going to see a lot of deer activity, was a lot for me. I was like, all right, dude, I'm going to do it once. So I took a climber and put it on a naked pine tree 30 yards in front of a burn pile that had a front loader right beside it. I parked my truck on the other side of the front loader. So my truck is literally 30 yards from me, up a naked pine tree sticking out in the middle of nowhere, and 25 yards in front of me. And so the smoke, I had smoke, which was good because it would, cover scent and all that stuff. But I had this deer decoy 25 yards in front of me. And I had not seen anything. And at about 5:30, I look to my right and I see a deer going through a draw. And I hit a grunt tube. And that deer hung a left and walked directly to my decoy. He did not go 1 degree to the right. He didn't go 1 degree to the left. He walked in a beeline directly to my decoy and stood directly in front of it, ready to fight. And then I proceeded to shoot him in his chest. He died. The difference between that decoy, that deer, that hunting situation and turkey hunts was that deer did not gobble. If that deer had gobbled, it would have made sense to me because it was just like a turkey hunt. Like, he came in on a rope. The damnedest thing I've ever seen. I was like, man, I cannot believe this is happening. I cannot believe that I am seeing this right now. And sure as I'm sitting here, dude, it worked like a charm.
And then he said, "Thank you, John Dudley."
And Jamie, begrudgingly, I did. Begrudgingly.
Now,
Yeah, dude, it was extremely interesting.
it's funny that you brought that up because
And actually, hold on, it's funny because that deer, I killed that deer on Thursday, 2 days from now, a year ago today. I'm sorry, November the 18th.
it's funny that you brought that up because that's one thing that, and I'm not telling you that it can change your season or it cannot change your season, but if you're calling or you're using decoys and you're having a rough season, just lay off of them for a minute. Maybe they've already associated your calling with danger coming from that stand, that location, that time, whatever. So maybe lay off the calls. If you're not calling and you're having a rough season, give it a shot because it can change your entire year. Or using a decoy, same with using a decoy, vice versa. If you're using it, lay off of it. If you're not, try it. Because man, I grew up thinking like, I grew up with an old school dad. You sit down, you shut up, and you don't move. And so for me to use calls, it was like, what am I doing? I'm making noise while I'm hunting. Like I'm going to screw myself up, and I've grunted and rattled in tons of deer. And same with the decoy. I'm like, what am I doing? They're going to know that's a fake. They're going to know. I mean, I'm boogering up everything.
There are times when they do know it's fake. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely they know it's fake. There are also times, but the deer that look at that and think it's fake are not the deer that you're after. Like the big bucks that are just blind with lust, like that's what you're after. But, you made a good point. Like, some people listening, like, oh, I can't believe you take a day off hunting during the rut. There's people out there and like, dude, like maybe all they have is 25 acres or 10 acres. Maybe they don't have another place to sit. Maybe they only have that one stand. And that's what makes it really challenging for a lot of people. It's like, man, like I only have this one spot. It's like the right decision. I know you want to be out in the woods hunting, but sometimes, man, a lot of times the right decision is not to go hunting. You're not going to shoot anything sitting on the couch. That's true. But in a bad wind, you're not shooting anything in the stand either. And more importantly, with a bad wind, you have the ability to booger that place up for 4 or 5 days. So sometimes the right decision, man, is just to stay home.
Yeah, and it's difficult sometimes, man. But
it's brutally difficult.
I've learned. I used to be the kind of guy I wanted to hunt just to hunt, and I wanted to.
That's how I am that guy now. I still am that person.
I wanted to just be in the woods. It could be 95 degrees and I don't have a bad wind, but I'm like, it's deer season,
Maybe I'll get lucky.
But then I realized, I'm like, man, these guys who kill giants, you're like, what are you talking? They went out one time and shot a giant. They went out 2 times all year and shot a giant because they made the right decisions. They didn't go and just booger up deer and educate deer. And because here's what happens. If you go in all September long or all October long and you're hunting with bad winds and hot weather and all you're doing is educating those deer. And then come November, it's harder to hunt those deer. And so those guys who you're like, what in the crap, they hunted one time. Well, they're making smart decisions. They're waiting until they have the cold front with the perfect wind and the pressure rising. They're waiting until that day is perfect. And they're going in and that deer has never smelt them, never seen them. He's never boogered them. And so I learned, don't hunt just to hunt. Now hold on. Let me rephrase that. Don't hunt your best spots just to hunt. Like I'll go out and sit at, my in-laws who have 5 acres and there's a couple decent bucks out there. I'm not expecting to see a giant shooter buck, but I'm not going to go to my number one spots just to be out there hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like sometimes the right decision, man, is just simply not to hunt. And a lot of people can't do that because they can't. They cannot.
So what's left for you this fall?
Let me see. So I've got to fly to Texas this coming Sunday. We have an outdoor hunting meeting on Monday and Tuesday. All right. Otherwise, I would be at the farm. I'd probably leave Thursday and drive up there, spend the weekend. But so I'm taking this weekend off, and then next weekend will be we have Thanksgiving next Thursday. So I get back. We will probably leave and go to. I get back Tuesday night. Wednesday we're driving to Savannah, which is where I'm from, to have. Then we're going up to my family's farm. I'll probably take a pair of binders with me, but that's about it on that. But we'll leave Savannah on Friday, and then we'll go to the farm for the weekend. And then after that, we've got an HRP event, and then I've got a hunt in Texas. I've got another hunt in Texas, and then I've got a hunt down in Sonora, Mexico, like in January for mule deer, which I'm just over the moon about. Like completely and totally over the moon about. So like it's a busy fall. Like, you know, the older I get, the smarter I get, the more I work, the more opportunities open up for me. Oh, I've got an elk depredation tag with my hands are literally on right now for Utah. So I got to get up to Utah. So yeah, I mean, the rest of my year, man, it's pretty freaking crazy, dude. It's almost too much, but you know, I'd rather be
Sounds
too
like
much.
a good time.
Yeah, you know, and like, man, like honestly, like I get as much pleasure. So this past weekend, like the whole time, like we were up there, like I was just, my goal was to get Melissa, my girlfriend, a big buck because she just started hunting last year with me, and she shot 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 deer, 5 or 6 does. And the goal is to get her, like, for her to shoot like a big pig, or to get her a good buck. So like so in Georgia I have 2 tags, and like at our farm it's like you don't shoot more than 2 bucks. So I was gonna basically let her shoot one, let her fill my second tag. So for me to shoot another big buck this year, it has to be bigger than the one that I shot earlier, and I just don't really see that happening. It's possible. I mean, there's deer that would score higher. I don't think we have a buck on the property that I like more from a visual standpoint based on the way that the type of racks that I like. So, but yeah, I've got more whitetail in Georgia. I've got whitetail and axis in Texas. I've got mule deer in Texas. I've got mule deer in New Mexico. And then I've got a cow depredation tag for Melissa in Utah.
Now, that's another point I want to bring up, and you just said it. You talked about your expectations, you know, for the rest of the season. If you're having a rough season, maybe possibly lower your expectations. You know, and that goes back to understanding. You know, I understand fully and completely the amount of pressure that comes on hunters to shoot this giant, you know, Instagram-worthy deer.
Oh yeah.
And you see a nice buck, and you're thinking, oh well, he's not no, I'm not. I'm gonna pass. I had a friend tell me one time. He showed me a picture of a deer, and he said, "Yeah, I passed on him. I think he'll be bigger next year." And I said, "What's the biggest deer you've ever shot?" And he said, you know, I don't remember what he said, 130 inches. And I'm like, you do know that deer's bigger than 130 inches, right? And he's like, yeah, but I think he'll be more next year. And I'm like, you passed on your biggest buck to date, hoping he'll be bigger next year?
I agree with that. Don't shoot a buck just to shoot a buck. Like there was my brother. He's like, "Is this deer a shooter?" And I was like, "Well, technically, yeah. That deer's, you know, technically, yeah. You could shoot him. That deer's 3 and." I mean, my brother's never killed a buck, so we're gonna let him shoot something. It's got to be over 3.5. And I was like, "Yeah, Mitchell." I was like, "You can shoot it, but like, dude, I'd rather shoot a doe than that. You know, like we got way bigger deer than that thing. Like much bigger."
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people, man, like they'd rather shoot like a spike or a fork horn. Like I'll shoot a doe any day of the week over an immature buck. Like I don't care. Like I would rather not shoot something than shoot an immature buck. But now listen, I don't judge people that do that. Like I'm not sitting over here in judgment. It's just me personally. Like I've shot a ton of deer in my life, and like, you know, I just like my whole thing is like, you know, sometimes the right decision is not to hunt, and a lot of times the right decision, man, is like just because he's got horns, man, doesn't mean that you need to shoot him. Like I completely agree with. I think your friend made the right decision in letting that deer walk, and I applaud him for that. You tell him that I said, hell yeah, and just hope the neighbor doesn't get him.
Yeah, no kidding. No, and here's what I just tell everybody is like, if your expectations are too high, you're always going to have a bad season. Like, you'll never enjoy hunting for what it is. You'll never enjoy hunting for what it was meant to be and what it should be. So lower your expectations a bit. But if a buck walks in and it gets your heart pumping, stink and shoot it. Like, that's all it
Let it
is,
ride.
man.
Yeah. Ride the lightning. Absolutely.
And don't care what anybody else says.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, that's one of the problems. One of the negatives with social media is like being judged by someone, like, don't judge your success by someone else's success. Like, because, and I think people that mock some other person's deer are losers. And I would say this to their face. If someone's like making fun of someone's like, oh man, that's a dink buck or whatever, man, that my deer's bigger, I'd be like, hey man, like, you're a loser. And let me tell you why I think you're a loser. Like, you don't know that person's situation. It's like this guy, he may have only, so let's say it's a college kid, and he may have only had 2 days to hunt back home. He's home for the holidays, he's got to go back to school. And he just wanted some meat for his freezer, and all he had the chance to shoot was a spike. So, like I think that I celebrate anyone's success in the field, like as long as it was done ethically and done the right way for the right reasons. I'm all about that. Like, but like in trophy hunting, like for example, trophy hunting, like if you're trophy hunting and you're managing deer for trophy deer, managing your property or the lease you have or whatever, like do it to it. But like don't put your expectations on what you view success on someone else, because that's just wrong. It's like there's a lot of people like in Texas. I was talking to a buddy of mine in Texas yesterday. Texas has a ton of high fences, tons, like a zillion high fences. And you get all these people that get wrapped around the axle about that. And it's just like, hey man, like, dude, you live in Minnesota. You've never been to Texas. Why do you care what this person does on their private property that they own in another state and time zone from you? Why are you upset? Like, this dude has a high fence. Maybe he's got some deer breeding program or whatever. And like how he views success, like he was just posting on his social media that he accomplished something that he wanted to do. And here you are in Minnesota, like mocking him and raising hell and talking shit on social media. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I support anyone and everyone's success. Now, if you're shooting like African game in a high fence in Texas, like I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I want to come do that. But like, I'm not going to like make negative comments on social media about it. Like, if you want to do your thing, you do you. Just do it. Just be ethical about it.
Yeah. No, and real quick before we move on, I want to give a plug. You mentioned powerlifting, and you mentioned your brother now on his first hunt, and we've got something really exciting. On December 9th, 10th, and 11th, I've got a guy flying here from PA. His name is Joey Satsmary. If I say that wrong, I am sorry. But he is a world champion strongman. And he put out a post not too long ago of, hey, one of my goals is I want to hunt a buck. And I'm like, somebody put my name in there and said, he might be able to help. We got connected. He's flying down here. We're traveling to Oklahoma. We're going to document the entire process, of him learning how to shoot the bow and going out and hunting and hopefully killing his first deer. And I'm sure he'll put me through some insane workouts while he's here, but it's going to be a really good time and a really fun time. He's a fun guy. So make sure and stay tuned for that, because I believe that not only will it be a fun kind of series to watch and listen to, but also you might learn something from it. So, and he's a big black rifle guy. I noticed that right off the bat.
What's his name?
Joey, Satmary. Satsmary.
Spell that one more time slower.
SZATMRAY.
Joey Satsmary, strength coach. Let's see what we got.
Yeah.
Lions Den Elite Training.
Yeah, so he's flying down here from PA in December, and we're going to go chase some late season whitetails in Oklahoma there at Liberty Ranch. It's going to be a really good time. Really cool series of podcasts to listen to of a first-time hunter, and we're going to do some videos, and so make sure and check that out, guys. Stay tuned for that, because I believe it'll be a really cool project.
No, that's awesome, man. Like, I think that's an interesting thing. That's one of the things that we don't do like in life anymore. Like as you get away from elementary school and middle school and high school and college, like we stop learning new physical skills. And I think anytime someone can pick up a new physical skill, I think that's phenomenal, because when we were kids, we learned new physical skills constantly. As adults, we tend to not. And I think that I think the guy, has he ever shot a bow?
Yes, he has.
Okay, that's the thing about shooting a bow, that it's interesting because it's super easy, in my opinion, to learn to shoot a bow. Which, and when I say that, I mean that like within like southern whitetail range, like 0 to 30 yards, 0 to 20 yards. Like I don't think it's very hard picking up a bow. And if you're there, if someone's there helping you, like get you dialed in and stuff, and working with your sights and all that stuff, like it's really easy. Where things get really complicated is hunting with a bow. Like, so it's like, oh yeah, I'm dialed at, like, you know, like Black Rifle, we sponsor the TAC, and we have a lot of people in our company that shoot bows at TAC and stuff. And I've taken several of them hunting for the first time, and it's just a totally different animal. It's like, you know, the TAC Total Archery Challenge, you're walking around, you're shooting the breeze, you're having a good time, you're laughing and stuff. It's like, okay, well, here's what we're gonna sit in a stand attached to a tree, and we're not gonna move, we're not gonna talk, we're gonna be really quiet, and you probably might get cold. And then when a deer comes in, you don't just stand up and shoot it. You got to wait for the right time to stand up. Then you got to wait for the right time for it to stand up. Then you got to wait for the right time to draw your bow back. And then, you know, it's the deer moving, and it's not like a stationary target. Like, that's when everything starts to come into play. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. And that's why I'm really excited to kind of document the process and do it with somebody who I believe will have a lot of fun doing it with. So also, I think we're going to put out some tips on you know, some general stuff on becoming a better bow hunter, and a few exercises that you could incorporate to become a better hunter, a better bow shot. So it'll be really fun. I'm excited about it. Before we move on, let me give a quick thank you to our friends over at NZ Campers. You guys have heard me talk about them quite a bit, but they are purpose-built campers for hunters by hunters. They have some incredible features built in for hunters, like boot dryers and meat storage, and some really cool scent lock cabinets. And so go check out NZ Campers. That's ENZY on social media, because they make a phenomenal camper, and they're for hunters by hunters with the purpose of being used to hunt. So go check them out. They are absolutely awesome. I got to tour one there at one of the conventions, and they're really super cool. Baker, if you had one tip, you know, Fred Bear was big on his field notes, so I like to ask all of my guests, what's one field note you've taken over the years that I can take and put in my back pocket and make myself a better hunter with?
How scent. Okay, well, there's one I can't talk about.
Well, I'm anxious to know why you can't talk about it.
So, we'll connect offline about it. So I think one thing, if it were me, and I was looking to up my whitetail hunting game, or just hunting game in general, specifically still hunters and whitetail hunters, understand how your scent works, and understand how wind and barometric pressure and time of the day affects your scent. Okay, so in the morning, scent rises. Okay, in the afternoon, scent falls, because if you look at how the earth heats and cools. Okay, so in the morning, it's like it's coldest right at, when the sun comes up, that's when you're coldest, and that's because it's basically hammering that cold air down on top of you. And I think it's important to understand how scent works in depending on the day and what time of the day. Also, like if you're sitting in a tree stand and there's no wind, you are basically creating a mushroom cloud of scent below you. Because VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, which is what we shed that animals smell. Okay. And we shed VOCs, and if there's no wind to push them, they just cascade out of a tree stand and just explode outward like a mushroom cloud on the ground. And I think if people were to spend more time understanding scent and what really the factors that affect scent, I think you up your game drastically.
Yeah, I agree. Talk to me a little bit about when you're in the mountains, and how you quickly understand thermals. Or do you have any kind of quick tip or trick to quickly understanding the thermals and what they're doing at the time?
So the way I learned onshore, offshore wind rising, wind falling, like was from surfing. So I've surfed all over the world. And so the best waves are when you have an offshore breeze. And you have offshore breeze in the morning because wind comes downhill and it goes out to sea and it holds the face of the wave open. That's what creates barrels. Versus an onshore wind, which is what you can tell. I can tell when the wind switches instantaneously. Like in the morning, it's like, oh, there it goes. So you got to think when you're hunting in the mountains, early, your scent's going downhill. And as the sun heats the ground, your scent starts to come uphill. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like, you have to understand, like, your scent just doesn't dissipate. But also keep this in mind. Animals don't necessarily, they know when you've been there. They know where you've been. And they don't necessarily care if you've been there. What animals get freaked out about is when they know that you're there. And a big mature buck, like, he will find you if he smells you. Like, he's not going to blow and he's not going to run off. He's just going to slowly turn around and walk away. And I think a lot of people don't understand the way scent works, how important it is. And like, I would Google some like VOCs, which stands for volatile organic compound. Google that, read up on them and how your body sheds them and how you can, and there's really nothing you can do to prevent them. Because animals, like, they basically they smell in layers. So like we walk in the house, we smell, someone's grilling out hamburgers. Well, a deer smells in layers. A deer smells the bun, he smells the pickles, he smells the ketchup, he smells the lettuce, he smells the mustard, the mayo, the meat, and then the bottom bun. He smells everything. Most people don't know that. And if you want to talk about something really crazy, the way that turkeys see and hear, each eye on a turkey operates independently, each ear operates independently. Imagine the sensory overload coming in from that.
Now, what you said there, sparked something in me, because you see a lot of guys and they're like, I just don't get it. I took my shower, I'm using
Doesn't
good
matter.
clothes or whatever. And people, I think, because I say scent lock and their maximum odor absorption, yes, scent lock does absorb odor. However, it can't absorb all odor, and it's not going to absorb all odor. And no matter how much carbon, activated carbon or whatever is in the clothes, you still have to worry about scent. And there's no way to out trick or out cover a deer's nose, no matter how much, ozone you use or showers you take or whatever. You still have to hunt the wind.
Yeah. So, they do a lot of tests with dogs, like scent elimination and stuff like that. And it's trickery. Like, oh man, dog's got a super sensitive nose. Well, a deer smells more than a dog does. All right. Pig smells more than a deer, which smells more than a dog. And you have to understand the drive behind a dog's drive is to please its master. Okay. A deer's drive is to survive. Deer live in the woods. Dogs do not live in the woods. So it's a horrible comparison, and it's I call it fancy marketing. But like, you cannot eliminate VOCs. I do not care what you do, how you do it. You'll hear people say, "Oh my God, this stuff works." Like, I walked in on this path, and a deer walked right across it 2 hours later. Well, the deer smelled it. He knew that there was something had walked there, but he didn't care because that was 2 hours old, and he knew that it wasn't there anymore. So, like, that's another thing. Like, I'll give you an example. Sunday morning, I was hunting a ground blind in a pecan orchard that bordered up next to planted pines that we had about 100-yard food plot cut right in the side of it. Beautiful sunrise. If you look on my Instagram, you'll see the photo. Absolutely stunning. And the wind was like 79% right for this stand. It was blowing at about 230, which I didn't care if it blowed it in that direction. So if it was blowing, north-northeast, like, that was fine. But what happened, there was a little change in wind pattern. And the wind doesn't always blow exactly like it's supposed to. There'll be little gusts here and there blowing it in different areas, moving your scent there. A couple of times the wind changed and basically took my scent and blew it directly down that food plot like a runway, and it just captured it there. And all these deer would get about halfway down the food plot, and my scent was there, and they knew it. And they didn't like it. And so I saw a ton of deer, but I didn't see any deer for very long. They were all moving about, and they could bust me. So, like, that was a really good learning experience to see how deer, how scent works and how it can linger and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question I got for you. I am a big fan of eating wild game. And I've partnered with my friends over at Rebel 6 Rubs. They make 9 different rubs to accompany all different sorts of wild game. What is one of your favorite wild games to consume?
What's my favorite wild game?
Yeah,
Oh, that's easy. Axis. That's really easy to answer that question.
Speaking of axis,
Without question, axis. And let me expand on that. There's everything about axis. Every way you can prepare it is phenomenal. Steak, sausage, patties. Like if the sausage links that come off of a wild animal are like, holy crap, I could eat these every day for like one meal, then to me that's the ultimate test. There's not a bad piece of an axis.
Speaking of axis, if you've been following along, we've been promoting a giveaway, and that giveaway was for an axis hunt with me. You won some other incredible prizes, but the big one being the axis hunt, along with the 2022 Bear Archery Refine. That giveaway has ended, and we've selected a winner.
Go see who won this axis giveaway, and then we'll come up with another giveaway here in the next couple of weeks to do. And you can go to the account and see what it is. Give us 2 weeks, we'll have one.
Oh, snap. Coming in hot. Black Rifle Coffee coming in hot.
So, yeah, Axis is by far, in a way, my favorite. I have my buddies that live in Alaska. They have a company called 60th Parallel. Okay, and they're phenomenal hunters, outdoorsmen, woodsmen. They do some really epic stuff. I was up there on a trip, and they sent me home with a bunch of stuff, and I had caribou, which I think is probably one of the best looking meats. I think it was mountain caribou or bear. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. That was phenomenal. It was beautiful looking meat. That was really good. I had some sheep. I think it was dog. Amazing. A little bit of muskox. Muskox looks really good, but it's kind of weird. The one that blew me away, man, was mountain lion.
I've heard that.
It tasted like just souped up, perfectly delicious pork, but better.
Somebody shot a giant mountain lion, and it was on display at the Pope and Young organization at the Pope and Young convention. Somebody said, "How could you hunt an animal you're not going to eat?" And somebody else walked by and like, "Why would you not eat it? What are you talking about? Like, it's amazing." And they were like, "No, there's no way." And the conversation began about how good it was, and now I am full bore trying to hunt mountain lion.
It was absolutely phenomenal. I will tell you this, which is really interesting about cats, is like I have seen up until this season, and I'm from the South, okay? Up until this season, I've seen more mountain lions in the wild than I have bobcat, okay?
Really?
I've seen, dude, damnedest, I swear to you. And I've hunted, I've been in a deer stand hunting whitetail hundreds of days. I mean, like I have spent a lot of time chasing whitetails over the past 30 years. I am telling you, I think I've seen 2 bobcats in my life in a deer stand, and I have seen a bobcat every weekend this season. I got something else to say about that. This might sound insane. I think I have seen the biggest bobcat in the world, and that was several weeks ago with my nephew. I bet you that bobcat weighed 50 pounds.
Good Lord.
It was huge because I was like, oh my God, look at the size of that thing. And they were out of season, dude, and I saw it for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. I thought it was a coyote, a big old coyote. And I was like, oh my God, look at that coyote. And I was like, wait a minute. Oh my God, that's a bobcat. She goes, where? And I was like, well, he just went in the bushes. But the thing was massive.
That's awesome. Now you need to catch it on trail camera. That way everybody on Facebook would be like, oh my gosh, it's a black panther.
No, dude, it was a massive bobcat. It was massive. And the other bobcat I've seen were a tenth the size of it. This thing, and now, so we had a trapper come out there. I got trapped a 42 pounder, I think, over the summer.
That's awesome, man. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Stay tuned because we're going to be putting together a giveaway with Black Rifle. Stay tuned for that, guys. Thank you for listening, Baker, so much for coming on, my friend. Thank you for helping. You don't help make the coffee at all, but thank you for great coffee.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. And I appreciate. Thanks everybody for listening, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Y'all have a great week, and again, stay tuned for Joey coming down to hunt on his first whitetail hunt, and stay tuned for an awesome giveaway. Got some big things coming up. It's going to be an exciting end of the year.
Later, man.